All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, your host, Brandon, my co-host, Nick and Dan, and gentlemen, the West Ham match review. West Ham, I don't think they really pronounce their H's over there, Nick, so we got to be a bit proper as we prepare to go to London.
Lots of P's in there. That was fun. Yeah, I am, I'm cautiously optimistic that the ship's going to get turned around here. I mean, there's some good flashes, but yeah, hopefully we are, Dan, at the beginning of new Chelsea when we are over in less than 3 weeks now.
Yeah, it's, look, the worst loss of a Chelsea game can still result in the best day out. It's just a little bit more of a sad drink than a happy drink because you're getting a chance to do it in London with friends and enjoying the match going atmosphere. Hopefully we get to see 2+3 wins, including the Chelsea women now officially in the Conti Cup final. We spoke it into existence. It is going to happen at Selhurst Park. It's going to be lovely to go back there. Things we thought we would never say. It's going to be lovely to go to Selhurst Park. We're going to go there. We're going to watch the women win, and hopefully the men bookend it with at least one win, but hopefully two while we're there.
It's a possibility. I tell you what, I don't think you had to speak much into existence with the women's team winning, but go ahead, take the credit. Maybe focus your efforts on the men's team.
Which one of the 7 goals was your responsibility, Dan?
Made sure to give Sam Kerr a little bit of a FaceTime call just to hype her up beforehand. She's having those spaghetti sandwiches, or is it Guro has the spaghetti sandwich? I forget the Trivago ad. I watched it and I just don't remember who takes credit for putting spaghetti between 2 pieces of bread and enjoying that as their pregame meal.
The carb loader, man. That's intense.
When you run 6 miles, ain't no thing. But anyways, I have to pull us back. This is the men's review. Unfortunately, we'll let Blue Royalty be the experts on massive amounts of wins accumulating in a season. Here we are looking at Chelsea's trip to the E20 season. Share points with the London rivals. Early signs trending positive with Joao Felix, and then an aggrieved supporter sees fault with VAR once more. We are not the only ones, but we will definitely be the ones yelling the loudest. Where is our apology?
Bad weekend. Bad weekend for VAR.
3-word match reviews. Light them up. Turn up the temp, Dan. Where we got?
Well, no surprise. You're going to see a lot of VAR elements in here. So look, this is what the people gave me. This is what the people gave me. This is what they put in front of me. I picked the best ones. RJ with the VAR from good. You had Darth Texan with the handed a draw. Jason with the points fly away, because of the birds. He also had Gabriel with the bird brain ref. Classic 86 with the light Dijon mustard. Nicholas with the corruption, doing it as 3 words. Tana with the promising, then predictable, and then Joey asking a terrible question. London is crap? Question mark?
The entire city. Yeah, I mean, a little bit, huh? I think mine is super obvious, especially if you follow me on the Twitter. Vertical passes work.
But I changed it.
It says vertical passes work.
I changed it for you.
No, we need editorial control here. I said vertical passes work. VAR does nothing work. So you're actually a little bit on the off there, unfortunately. What did you have, Nick?
Yeah. VAR hammers Chelsea.
You worked it in there. You didn't need to put it on mine.
I know. I couldn't resist though.
Dan?
Try to sum up the mood, because I think the mood right now is that the wafer thin, which is a hyphenated word, so it's one word. Patience tested.
Well, I don't think a wafer is going to hold long, so we'll see. We'll see when that cookie breaks.
Boy.
Oh, it hopefully won't be in Germany. Anyways, huge shout outs to Brendan, Colin, and Gordon for joining us on Patreon. See you in the Discord. Ping us if you're having any issues. Apple Podcasts, North Up One from the US. Thank you. Again, we'll take singles every single week. A little bit consistency. Nick, you posted. We are moving up the charts. Top 10. We're on the way to numero uno.
Yeah, it was a cool week. I mean, we flirt with the top 10 in various markets across the world, and the way that Apple
It's complicated as a status, you know?
Yeah, look, Apple does a weird thing with the way they rank stuff. It's really about like a more of a week by week or day by day performance. But I mean, to be competing against the likes of ESPN and NBC in the States, or any of, you know, the BBC shows or whatever, is just tremendous. And then to see that we have more 5-star Spotify ratings than many of these big news networks have on our show is really, really special. And I think it's an indicator, Dan, that we're doing something right over here. But we need more. We need to establish supremacy in the tiny little bubble that we have.
Look, when CNN's FC page needed to talk to a Chelsea content arm, they came to us. So
is this a shameless plug for your work, Dan? Is this what you're doing
look,
right now?
you know, I got to drop many great analogies in that article. So I really appreciate Ben from CNN FC giving me an opportunity to talk about the club in its current state.
Yeah. So, and look, we have to say above Alexi Lawless. Like, that is just kind of,
come on, guys.
Where I'm at. But anyways,
you don't need another motivator than that in U.S. soccer.
North Up, thank you. Everybody, thank you. Find ways, get creative. We appreciate it. If you're newish to the pod and you haven't done it, do it. It is how you can find us. So anyways, we dive in. West Ham, this past Saturday, the 11th of February, we were playing in the Premier League at the London Stadium, rent-free if you're West Ham. Chelsea won, Hammers won. Goal 16 minutes, Joao Felix, and then Emerson, because of course, you don't say.
Unmarked.
Yeah. His first Premier League goal.
Yeah. Agent Emerson. It's completely flipped, unfortunately. Sick. So shout out to Chelsea FC letting us pull the highlights. You can run it back with them. If you haven't, download the FC or Chelsea FC Fifth Stand app, the only official app from Chelsea. All the content goes there first. Appreciate you letting us do it. Let's hear how it went. Here we go. All right. Well, electrifying 1-1. Dan, lineups. This is different. What are you doing in here?
I'm using SofaScore's lineup. It's a little nicer in terms of actually getting, unlike the Premier League's lineup, it actually is closer to what is on the pitch in terms of a formation.
Just a quick note, Dan. Do you think they represented what was termed light Dijon mustard colored of our shirts as well as they could have here?
You know, I'm going to say a no.
Yeah, I would say
really,
no as well.
You needed more of like a watered down Grey Poupon, like the store brand version of it. And they did not master that here. But look, anyway, it was Kepa Arrizabalaga between the sticks, Reece James, Thiago Silva, Benoit, Badiashile, and Marc Cucurella as your back four. Ruben Loftus-Cheek making a return to the lineup to hang out with Enzo Fernandez in the midfield. Mykhailo Mudryk, Joao Felix, and Noni Madueke had his name butchered millions of times during that broadcast.
Yeah.
All behind Kai Havertz at the top line. Bettinelli, Chalobah, Azpilicueta, and Chukwuemeka did not make an appearance, along with David Datro Fofana. Conor Gallagher, Ben Chilwell, Mason Mount, and Hakim Ziyech all came in off the bench. 3 of those basically as subs in the 67-68 minute, and then Conor Gallagher is a late 79th minute addition.
Hey, when's the last time we saw that we had more subs on our bench than the opposing team?
Been a minute.
Big day for Chelsea. Potter's struggling. He has to make changes now. He goes, wait,
more subs than you. More subs than you.
Yeah, there's not only 5 to choose from.
Got more subs than you.
I mean, the fact that we're down to 1 goalkeeper on the bench is a little bit disappointing, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
used to have 2. Top line stats: Chelsea with an overwhelming 72% possession away from home. We had 12 shots, 4 on target to their 10 shots, only 2 on target. We had 4 of our shots were blocked, unfortunately, which kind of takes a little bit out of it. We had 6 corners there, 5, 1 caution apiece, 1 big chance apiece. And then, flashy. What else? If anything looks good, yeah, I don't know. We had 13 of 22 dribbles. That's pretty impressive. So, anyways, one random stat at OptaJoe says 2014, Emerson is the first player to score his first Premier League goal for a club against Chelsea, having previously appeared for the Blues in the competition since Frank Lampard for Man City back in September 2014. That is NYCFC's Frank Lampard to you on loan, by the way.
That's tough. Remember that for sure. That was a sad day for the pod. We had just started back in September of 2014, and if memory serves, we didn't take too kindly to that instance of Lampard. But I'm gonna just throw something at you guys for the shithouse moment of the match. See if you're biting off. I think it was cool that Conor Gallagher, right, when he comes on, sees that Thomas Souček hasn't had a whole lot of goalkeeping practice during the week, right? And he's like, hey, you and me, big fella, like let's work on a couple of quick saves here. Let's get you down to your left in this instance. And, I thought it was a really cool thing that they did that in the middle of the game, because, look, they don't play for the same team. And Connor just was, he's a giving soul. We've all known that for as long as we've covered him here. And look, Souček took him up on it. And I think we can tell that kid has a real future in goal. Brandon was talking to a good friend of the pod, Mike Ryan Ruiz, after this disappointing draw. And I think, Brandon, you really broke down the technique as well, which was really cool. So
hand for hip, right?
Yeah, no, he really, there's always a gap when you dive right underneath the armpit, and he went wrist from hip and out and absolutely covered that gap. But no, he was falling down. It just happened to break his fall. Woof. I mean, what in the world are we doing? And the funny thing was, like, it was such a kind of a nothing shot from Connor that really should have been the game winner. So absolute shambles that we'll get into.
Shithouse moment of the match, the fact that the Birds didn't do us a favor and like hang out on the left-hand side of the pitch. They were on the right-hand side.
Do birds even exist,
really nice.
Dan? There's a question for you.
Well, all right. Okay, conspiracy theories. Here we go. We're going to jump into it real quick. We're going to take an ad break when we get back. All about breaking down the match that happened at the London Stadium. So thanks to sponsors. We'll be right back. All right. So point split at the London Stadium. It all looked great when we started. Tell you what. Second half, we are shadow of ourselves. Shots in the first 15 minutes. You had Reece, Enzo, Joao. We had over a 0.5 XG. Great start. Came out the blocks flying.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you had another 6 shots. Here's my thing. What created this, I felt like, is a very attacking lineup, right? Mm-hmm. Madueke, vertical player. Mudryk, vertical player. Felix hunting in behind. We know that Kai can run channels and open up space as well. Enzo is having a day playing balls in, as we saw with that beautiful assist.
Enzo and Ruben together, not exactly a defensive midfield pairing, you know.
I think we had called for that too, hoping that like he was fit enough to see that, because no one else really fits 2 holding mids next to Enzo like they did. And if you look at their position maps on McLockbot, they really like dominated their own sides individually, which I think shows that there wasn't a lot of overlap. Anyways, like I said, the shots are flying in. It was just flown. It was good to see. Obviously, no Mason. He came on later, which I think was kind of like maybe the big surprise. I think we were all expecting Felix to go right back into the lineup, which he did. In a different spot, though. He's in a number 10 role, sitting in behind Kai with Mudryk and Madueke on either side. I mean, how did you take in the first 10 minutes, Nick? 15, 20, 25? Very vertical, very aggressive on the front foot, which we said this is relegation threatened West Ham.
I think we treated this game in a lot of ways exactly like we should have. I mean, you had a week to prep for this, right? Over a week. You played late Friday against Fulham. You basically have a full week to prep for this. The team looked really bright coming out of the blocks. They looked rested. We hadn't seen Ruben since Newcastle, and we saw him for 2 minutes in that match. And then he came out, and his first action was to sprint past the entire West Ham team into the box, and you're like, where the fuck did this come from? Like it was thrilling for the first 20-25 minutes. I was really impressed. And of course we're going to talk about all of the offsides and all that sort of stuff as well, but I mean, for Chelsea to have created, in my mind, I am not the owner of the technicalities around big chances, but I'm saying big chances for us given our recent offensive performance. The Ruben cross should have come in earlier, right? That's a big chance. Kai's in the middle of the goal by himself. The Felix goal is tremendous, right? And then Kai's offside goal. I mean, these were happening rapid fire. It felt like West Ham couldn't get control of the ball, and it was utterly fantastic to watch. It's probably the best that I've seen us play, Dan, since Milan at home, for that first 20 minutes. But I think I'll leave it there. The best 20 minutes I've seen since Milan at home.
He had 6 shots out of the 12 were in the box as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how it's been challenging for this Chelsea team to get into the box, to get into positions where taking a shot on is the right thing to do. Like there ultimately is a lot of things. There are a lot of things that went well in that first 15, 20 minutes that felt like it was the beginning of the relationships and the partnerships on a live match stage, not in a training match, not on the training ground where everything's easier, right? Because no one's going in as hard for a tackle there. No points are on the line. So you're seeing the actual combination between Felix and Havertz and Mudryk and Enzo and Madueke. You're starting to see them learning, where do I put my pass? How do I weight it? How do I catch someone in movement? How do I continue pressing it forward versus recycling it back to catch people out in the West Ham defense? Like, we were really navigating some good passes to continue forward movement, to get into the box. And I mean, ultimately, those first 15 minutes, kind of just, I lined it out. Reece, Enzo, Felix Reece had a shot, Enzo had a shot. Both of those were outside the box. Joao gets his inside the box, but there was also the offside, the ball that Reece played to Felix, which that one felt like more of an obvious offside. Like,
yes.
I mean, both of the rules were still tight. I do think the Felix one, he got off a little early, but like, that's something where, hey, I see this. This is a replicatable thing that can be done in future matches now between Reece and Felix in this way. I am now excited as a supporter because this is something that can happen and be repeated, Brandon. And ultimately, like, that's what I'm hoping for from like a foundation. So the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes felt really good because you were starting to see things that you haven't yet, because these players haven't been on the pitch together or healthy together or off suspension together up until this point.
Yeah. And I think that, like, a lot of people will also point out that we created all of this without really anything going down Mudryk's side. It's like he didn't have a lot of stuff. So a lot of it went down Madueke. Sometimes it went right down the middle of the field, right? It was nice that Joao was able to show his intelligence, because he had a free role. He could go wherever he wanted, and he constantly found himself unmarked. West Ham could not track him, and he was able to use intelligence to find space. Like I said, he could have had a hat trick this game. Offsides was a little unlucky. He could have had some assists. He, to me, I think, was like so smart in this game of being able to find space. And when he did find space, he was putting the ball in the back of the net or putting it in a dangerous place for someone else. If you get to the point where you're adding Mudryk and him and Cucurella kind of figure out what's going on, I think we've all seen some compilations. I saw a new one today. The timing just isn't there. Like, when Cucurella looks, that's when Mudryk starts a run. They're not in sync at all. And I don't think it's anything more sinister than that. But my point is, once that gets going, now you really have to defend both sides, because
Exactly.
Reece James and Madueke, look, Madueke loves running at people. We are getting to the end line. We're getting cutbacks. We're getting crosses into the box. Reece James was, I think, our third highest player of putting the ball in the box. because he was finding space because Madueke was driving the defenders back, creating that pocket of space that we've, come to know from Aspilicueta as that back three right center back when he was doing those things. So to me, I think from an offensive standpoint, it was fantastic. But again, it was a cliff. This second half, I don't know if West Ham made some changes that I just didn't see, but it just didn't seem like the urgency was there. It didn't seem like the excitement to go get a second was there. And of course, when like you're level 1-1, like it's not good enough. We have to like be a relegation threatened, team. You'd like to think that Potter went in there and motivated in the push. It just, unfortunately, it didn't click in the second half. And I'm as confused as everybody else as to why. I would say that we created a lot on the sofa score. There's this really good attack momentum graph here. It is still all Chelsea in the second half, but they weren't as clear cut, I don't think.
To go back on a point that you made about the Reece James, Madueke, and I'll throw Ruben in there as well, because they were kind of operating in a triangle.
Yeah.
That really worked.
Do that. I like that.
That was very good. The reason it was very good is because they did not in attack maintain single channels. Madueke and Reece swapped. Like Madueke actually ended up playing defense on a couple of breaks because Reece had overlapped with him. Unlike what we saw against Fulham when he left a lot of space for Willian to run in. It was clearly something they worked on in the week. And then Ruben interchanging with Reece and Madueke, and it was impossible for Emerson to pick up which player was going to come at him. So that was fantastic. Your point about the other side and the dynamism that Mudryk showed in just little flashes yesterday. He didn't get the ball much, right? In 60 minutes again, that has to be massively frustrating for him. But if you're able to do that with him and Chilwell and Enzo, like those two triangles that's really dangerous stuff. Like that is really fascinating. Add to the fact that then you have to figure out whether it's Havertz or Joao Felix in the middle, who's going to come and get the ball deep and who's going to make the run. You have what could be a really great attack there, Dan. Like that could be a really great, confusing, manipulative attack. We just aren't quite there yet.
Yeah, you saw a lot of people asking for Ben Chilwell to come on earlier for Cucurella, who did not have a great day.
Not a banner day
on that left-hand side. That was not to the standard I think that he would hope to put out and have in terms of a performance. And it was not something where Reece and Madueke were enjoying playing with one another. I could imagine that Mudryk and Cucurella were likely not having the same synergy. They weren't connecting as well as they could. I mean, there was the one pass that Mudryk had forward that was part of the offside that was a brilliant pass and ball forward. And so like there definitely was some attacking impetus from him that was very exciting, things that you would hope to see more of. And I think there is an excitement for what does it look like when they have a chance, Ben Chilwell and Mykhailo Mudryk to play with one another. What is that actually going to look like? Because there is an opportunity for a lot of the overlap and ability to combine with one another. We've seen it before that Ben is one of the best left backs in the Premier League when healthy, and he's just getting back to it. I mean, even though Mudryk only had 29 touches, 16 18, so 89% pass accuracy, attempted one dribble. He won 4 out of 5 of his ground duels, and he was fouled twice, made 2 tackles. So, I mean, it was relatively a quiet day for him, Brandon, but, in the post-match press conference, you heard from Potter that, he's still getting up to his fitness. Madueke is still getting up to fitness. And so I think people looking at why were they sub so early? Like there is a thought and probably an eye on Dortmund coming up in the middle of the week. You likely want some of these players to be available for that as well. And as much as you want to go out and win this game, you also have to get them conditioned to be ready to give us a go for the rest of the season.
Look, Chile, just score, my man.
That was frustrating. That was just like hadn't been in the team confidence thing, right? I mean,
Oh,
God, if he would have ripped that in, we would have lost our minds.
would have been a fun day out to say the least. Yeah, so I think between offsides, between VAR, like we definitely did a lot on the day to win. Nervous as shit though when they scored off that free kick. Thankfully VAR taking its sweet ass time to really make sure that there actually was no way they could let West Ham have that goal. And then quickly ruling off anything positive for us. But if we look at Joao Felix, Dan put in a bid. He's ready. Sign on the dotted line. Like, let's go.
It's going to be expensive, but
is it?
Damn.
Wasn't it already agreed?
There's no agreed fee. There is no buyout. There is seemingly an understanding if Chelsea want to do a deal that something would be possible. Obviously, giving him a great experience between now and the end of the season, like making sure that he's in the Champions League squad, can do two things. One, it can increase the price they're asking for, but also increase the likelihood that he would want to stay, be in London, play for Chelsea. I just think it's a lot of early data points, right? Like you're looking at a match against Fulham, who, just remember, are a side that likely will challenge for top 4, given the fact that they're only playing in the Premier League.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised at this moment. They're playing really good football. And then you have the fact that this match against West Ham, again, not the two best opponents maybe to judge against. We'll have more data points against Dortmund here in the weekend, but the ball at his feet is absolutely electric. It is a really, really exciting moment for us to see an attacker like that again, who is capable of just turning the game themselves. Like, hey, I'll knock it to someone, they'll hit it back to me, I'll keep on moving forward in stride, I'll try a chip, I'll bounce it off someone. Yeah. The creative flair in his attack, while also being able to stand up to some really meaty Premier League defenders, Nick. I mean, that was probably the one concern people had, is like, okay, you're coming from La Liga, you've been in a side in Atletico Madrid that's been built to be more of a defensively minded unit. What's it going to look like coming to the Premier League? We've seen a lot of people like Andreas Christensen go to the La Liga. You have a much easier time playing there. The inverse is not always true, that you can come here and be successful. And it looks like, at least early data points, he could be a real star for us if we can get it done permanently.
Yeah, I mean, I won't talk about the future. I think my take on him right now is that his instincts are really good. The run that he makes for the goal, really good. Where he picks up the ball and what he does with it immediately is really good. He's faster than I thought. I don't know what I thought coming into this, but he's definitely faster than I imagined, which in this kind of newfangled Premier League, when you have robot Holland who's able to run 35 miles an hour, like is a good thing, right? And I think just overall, I think he gives players around him confidence, Brandon, that, he's not going to lose the ball immediately, that he is going to make a critical pass, that they can make a positive run, right? I think all of that is really good for this team that feels disjointed right now. And, of course, the fact, you put the ball in the net for us, you're a king as far as I'm concerned. But like, I think the rest of it really is giving me good vibes.
Again, I kind of talked about his intelligence, his ability to find space. How many times was he unmarked inside the West Ham box? And, they had 3 in the back with Declan and Paqueta until he went off for Souček. They essentially are defending with 7 or 8 back there, right? So for them to still lose him just shows that he's very sneaky. He makes Kai look better. I don't think he had a great day out. I think a lot of us are still a little bit frustrated, but from the eye test, I felt like it was a better looking Kai than what we'd seen in a couple weeks, if not longer. And so I think even just with that, that's an interesting thing. And plus, he's never played with probably Mudryk, Kai, and Madueke, let alone with Enzo and Ruben behind them. But I tell you what, no matter how all that stuff worked out and looked good, Enzo to Felix, copy, paste. Woo, buddy.
How sexy was that?
What
My
a
goodness.
ball, what a finish. And that was not the only time. Those two, I would like to see the pass map between those two. Clearly, Enzo, Argentinian coming from the Portuguese league, right? Probably speaks some Portuguese, even though he's only there for a few months.
The Benfica boys, man. I tweeted it. It's
exactly,
the Benfica
right?
boys.
And then Joao Felix, who's Portuguese, but who's been in La Liga for a long time. Clearly, they have been chatting on the training ground because that link up looks bromantic.
I actually found the transcript, Dan, between the two on the field, and it just says Moss. Moss, 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 Moss. Yeah.
Live Moss. It's back.
They are living Moss, but let's get a banner of that.
Taco Bell done. Let's get it done.
Come on, Taco Bell. Get involved here. Yeah, amazing. That was so tasty. Oh my goodness.
I like the point that Brandon made though about Kai looking better playing with Felix behind him. That was a really good shout. I think Kai was very unlucky with the way that the VAR lines were drawn on that offside decision, where both of his feet were actually behind the trailing foot of the defender. That felt very tight and probably worth more than the immediate just no from VAR. But like that was good. Like those type of passes forward to continue movement. And I mean, you look at like the heat map of where, Joao Felix was, he did spend a little time back kind of when we were kind of playing, defending a little bit, but all of his stuff, like he was on the left-hand side, he was on the right-hand side. He found spots in front of the goal in the center of the box. I mean, he was getting into places to make himself available and really took to that 10 role well and created opportunities either for an overload on the right-hand side. There was less going on the left. So you see it like very clearly, big orange dot on the right-hand side where some of the Reece James, Madueke combination play, and then kind of into Kai could happen. And like that is exciting to hopefully see more of. And I think it actually got harder when Paqueta came off, because that's when West Ham actually changed to be a little bit more, okay, we're going to just try to absorb some of this. And there was less freedom. And so I actually think we would have done better.
Agreed.
Not come off.
Totally
because
agreed.
they lost all progressive passing. I mean, remember this, guys. They had 27% possession at home. Sorry, 28% possession at home. That's pathetic.
And most of them were long balls, hoping that Antonio would do something, essentially.
Yeah.
Not talked about enough. Not talked about enough that injury basically is what, and like, and to maybe the kind of point to Graham, like, that was not what you didn't change enough to then try to figure out how we were going to take advantage of what happened when Paqueta came off.
Yeah, I completely agree with that point. Him in the game means that they have one more player trying to progress the ball upfield, which means at the moment in which he was fouled, we were taking the ball off of them because they were trying to advance the ball upfield in a more football style way instead of a route one way. When we took that creative outlet out of the game because he fell on his shoulder or whatever, they just started hoofing it, right? And I think that was a credit, by the way. I think that was a credit to the way that Chelsea were playing and pressing yesterday as we were winning the ball. We were basically living in their half, all first half. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't really get out, so they had to try something different. But I totally agree with you, Dan. The second half, if going into that second half that is going to be the style of play that you have to beat, then you have to do something different. You have to structure the team differently. And I think that's where the frustration is. Our friend EPZ will tell you that the first 15 minutes after halftime is when we look our worst. And that shouldn't be the case. You've just had 15 minutes to hit reset. We look lethargic as hell coming out of breaks. And, the first thing that happened in the second half is that they went on a really good series of passing around our defense and were lucky just to shoot off target. I mean, that it's really, really, really frustrating, especially when you think about some of the big games that we have coming up. You can't switch off. You can't come out of halftime unprepared to take on this challenge, because they are, the opposition team, in this case West Ham, is coming out to win this thing. They're 1-1 at home. They haven't won in a while. Like, they're trying to scrape out of this relegation fight. And you, Graham Potter, in this instance, did not have this team ready to play, and then the players certainly didn't respond.
Yeah. I mean, it was there, for the taking, but the second half just, it wasn't, wasn't where it needed to be. Tried to inject, some subs, a couple 67-minute Ziyech came on and Chilwell. I think a lot of us were like, Ziyech? Question mark? Like, okay, we're still doing that thing. Mount came on, I guess, at the same time, and then Conor Gallagher came on in the 79th minute. Fofana didn't, Chukwuemeka's a creative player as well. And then the other two, the defenders, you don't need them at that point, but it just shows you kind of, the team is starting to get deeper. The fact that you can bring Mason off the bench, you could bring Chilwell off the bench, Gallagher, that are starting to be positive signs. I think we just need a couple players play better from the beginning. But again, if this is the Joao Felix standpoint, he was, man of the match on the stats, as far as, foot mob, and potentially who's Sofa score too. Am I saying that right? Yeah. 7-7. So, look, he's played what now? 1.5 games for Chelsea. Yes. And we're all like, yeah, sign here. Good for him.
I mean, look, it's when you've been in the desert and you haven't had any water to drink.
That's why I keep 40 ounces really, really good at all times.
I will. Could I also just give an honorary shout to Ruben, who I think played incredibly well first game back from a long-term injury yesterday. I know that I've got a bunch of Twitter mentions saying he sucks defensively. He's not in the right positions. Our defense has been fine. Obviously we had a moment of madness yesterday where both Cucurella and Reece James switched off and allowed Emerson to score his first Premier League goal, but that's not Ruben's fault. Just throwing that out there. Ruben had, I think, the most dribbles on the team yesterday and was incredibly effective down that right-hand side. And again, as this team goes chasing goals, which we know we need to advance anywhere this season, right? Whether it's Champions League or up the Premier League table, give me that pairing all day. If we can have 72% possession, we send Ruben on these runs, Dan, I am all in on that.
Yeah, Ruben, 93% pass accuracy, 63-68. You had 5 out of 5 dribbles attempted in success, so 100%, which is very nice. And he also won 8 of 9 ground duels. Lost possession 7 times, was fouled once, 1 clearance, 2 tackles, dribbled past once. So, I mean, overall, like, he had a good day out. I think playing effectively a midfield role, which typically we've been used to seeing him, Swiss Army knifed into whatever the team needed in that moment. And this was another example of where it's like, hey, we need you to do this variation on something to make sure that Enzo can get the ball and continue to hit it forward and try to give us some attacking thrust. And he contributed well. I mean, I think just the last underlying point is like just being allergic to taking the first shot. It was something too on the day, whether it was Ben or Ruben, who, had an opportunity as well. Like, just test Fabianski. Like, he's not the best keeper in the league. You have a chance to put it on the frame and just see what happens. Like, that's something that, even though shots were above 10, shots on target were at 4, like, that is good. It is still not good enough to go out and win comprehensively each match.
Yeah. Progress, I think, is where we're at, but the standard is still not where it needs to be. So, step in the right direction a little bit, even though I know a lot of people are upset at Potter, but I'm going to hang that there for a second. We're going to take our last ad break, and we're back talking about VAR and some of the other things that need to improve. So thank you to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. So with that said, VAR, effing VAR, I can appreciate, look, Chelsea didn't hold back yesterday on the socials. I like this new approach from the club. They they quote tweeted FIFA's account saying 6 keepers, 2 awards, who will be named #the best. And they quote tweeted it with Thomas Suchek and a screenshot of the handball. The TikTok account was really funny. They did it, I think, as best they can. It was really, really like bad that we didn't even really stop and look at it. I don't know if we're doing pitch side monitors anymore. It doesn't really matter. A VAR studio should have that set up. The only thing I can think of, Dan, is they're doing if a player's falling, it doesn't count. My man wasn't falling. Like, he was on his knees leaning to the left. That's not how a person falls. Just saying.
So it was deemed to be a subjective decision versus the objective decision, where it's like arm was out in a natural position, hit it, clear penalty type of scenario where like pull down or slice somebody down in a tackle. This was he was going, in the ground area. He had been up previously. The hand was down. So that was why we did it this way type of thing. It's garbage. It is all trash. Their explanations are trash. Their implementation is trash. And the officiating on the pitch was trash. Like, it's all awful. Terrible.
Yeah.
It's all terrible.
It's predictable with Boston.
I mean, I saw the name, like, okay, like what tomfoolery and fuckery are we going to get into today? Because that's all that guy has in his bag of tricks. And these are the least favorite segments that we record, so I don't want to belabor this point too much. I want to get to like Potter's comments on it. It was a terrible call. When you go, like, I try to view these incidents and I go look at, like, hey, I go outside the Chelsea echo chamber that we exist in. I go to like Reddit's soccer page, which is very like, if you're a fan of any team, you feel like your team gets, crucified in that area. But I look at, okay, what are people saying here? When you have Arsenal, United supporters saying, I want Chelsea to lose points, but this was terrible. That is all you need right there when rival supporters who are invested in your failure, who want to see your tears, say, yeah, that's messed up. That is how this was absolutely wrong. No issue, no problem, wrong.
For the first time in a long time, a United fan texted me. First he said, why does Reece James look fat? Ignored that one. And then he goes, that was a VAR. That was a penalty. What is it doing? I had Arsenal and United fans reaching out to me on this one.
Everton, United, West Ham. I had a West Ham fan reach out to me and go,
exist?
Bro. Dude, here's maybe even a better indicator, right? The announcers that we typically get in the States are, I think, trained to not get on the referee's back so much during a broadcast.
Yeah.
Both of these announcers yesterday, I forget their names, so I apologize, whatever. Both of these announcers were like, can we go see that a third time? What is happening here? There is no check? Like, they spent a good solid 5 minutes after the incident talking about this, when that is not the MO. Typically, they will talk about a missed call and then move on for a period of time. This stayed in everyone's memory banks. It was quoted on NBC for a long period of time in the post-match. They obviously had a bunch of quotes from Potter that we'll get to, but this is among the most egregious missed calls that we've seen. And the explanation was horrific. I mean, it is absolutely horrific. And I have been a proponent of getting the call right, because, and I said this to everybody the minute they implemented this, it took the NFL 7 years to get above 80% calls right. And even now people are like, oh, they don't do a good enough job. And it's a lot better now. But this is crazy. Like, why have the system if you're going to ignore stuff like this? And by the way, we weren't the only one this weekend. Like, you might as well not have it.
And the context for this is, you looked at earlier in the game, not too much earlier, the goal that was given on the pitch that they were then took about 2.5 minutes to decide was not actually a goal. Like looking for the way to say it was a goal was the other part of this that made this feel even worse, that there was no element in here. But I know, Brandon, we should get to the comments that Potter had afterwards, because he was asked about this. He had a line of questioning about it directly.
As he should. I would just say, if this is one of the things where VAR was like, oh, because of this nuance or like the way the rule's written where there's no black or white, it gives us no wiggle room to get involved. These are the things that like at the end of the season should be like easy fixes, because we've had that multiple times this season where they're like, hey, sorry, the way the rules are written, we can't interject here. This is the most like embarrassing thing that they're going to have to sit there and be like, wow, we really messed up on the rules. We need to fix it. So Potter after the match, and I think this is where the lightning rod, went. During the match, I was like, this is a perfect time for a manager to go get a booking, right? Like, fire the team up, make sure that like everyone knows you're fighting for the team. Don't let shit like this go. We got to hear from the man himself. The question, was it a penalty? Pretty simple question. Response, I thought it was a good save. So you need your goalkeeper sometimes to get you the points. It hasn't been given, so there's nothing for me to say. I've only seen it briefly as I walked across. It looks like one of those where if it was given, I don't think it would be overturned, but it hasn't been given, so I don't know. A little bit of sass, a little bit of cheekiness in there, obviously saying you need your goalkeeper to give you the points when quite honestly, Souček, or quite clearly, is not a goalkeeper. I highly doubt he hasn't really looked at it, but that's just what he's going to say. He goes on, VAR looked at the handball and decided it wasn't. Are you surprised? Answer, it looked quite a handball to me. I don't know Thomas could get down that easily and save like that. It's a good stop from him. It's not for me to say about VAR. Again, being very cheeky, describing Souček as if he were a goalkeeper. And lastly, question, do you want more consistency about VAR? Answer, you won't, because they're human beings. Different human being in the room, and every single decision and action, you won't get the same one again. So it's very hard to get consistency. Sometimes they go for you, sometimes they don't. You just have to accept that. And this is where I think a lot of the back and forth of opinion was divided. Nick, did he fight enough for the team? Did he do fire and brimstone? What are your kind of thoughts on Potter post-match?
Yeah, there's this whole like, well, could you imagine Mourinho in the same situation? Fuck that. Mourinho's not here. Sorry. Like, I don't give a shit what he says in this post-match press conference at all. The damage is already done. The thing that he will do for himself here is either get fined or suspended or not get fined or suspended. Like that, those are his two options in the post-match press conference. What I wish he would have done is get a symbolic yellow card by getting in the fourth official's face during the match. That's what I wish would have happened, because with that, like, you get the yellow card and nothing else really happens to you, like assuming you didn't, punch him or whatever. But I would have, I know that's not Graham Potter's style, but I would have 100% gone full overboard in that moment to get a yellow card and prove to my team that I was fighting for them right there. I don't give a shit about the after stuff, Dan. Like, yeah, the quotes are cute or whatever, but the social media account's doing more damage than these quotes are. Like, leave it to the social team and then just do it on the field.
He is clearly an intelligent individual. And so I think finding ways to make your point without getting fined is a fine, no pun intended, line to walk. And so I think he did that through a couple of these answers here. I think at this point, there's just a lot of, this felt like a winnable game for a large part of it. I think the fact that it didn't end up in a win, particularly after not winning in our last match as well. The fact that some of the games have been a week, so there's been a week to fester with one draw into another draw, doesn't feel great. People are looking for wins now, not draws, not losses. And all of that has kind of gotten to this heated point where the question is being asked by plenty of people on Graham Potter as Chelsea's manager. I just don't think it's realistic to think that he will leave anytime before the end of the season. So I think you just have to accept where we're at. I think it actually might be crazy to think that he would leave anytime next season either, given the investment that Chelsea have made in part of his recruitment staff and the training staff. Like I just think there is like an acceptance of it. And I think that the challenge of comparing him to other people who he is not, whether Mourinho or Tuchel or someone else, both in their style of football and in how they handle these type of situations, is just there's an acceptance of what he will or won't do. I did though go back and like he did have some spiky moments on the touchline at Brighton, and I don't know if he's trying to kind of put on a different airs here, and so like it would be interesting though to see a little bit more of that touchline passion, which I do think if I were advising, if he said, "Hey Dan, what's one thing I could do that would make supporters really happy?" Like I do think, you know, the symbolic gesture, the getting fired up about something like this and showcasing visible anger towards it, anger to the situation, would have gone over well with supporters, because part of the job, rightly or wrongly, is not just about winning football games, but it is establishing an emotional relationship with the supporters, who will ultimately be the people cheering in the stands and singing the songs. And, you know, it's partially your football will help get them excited, but you are part of the pageantry of the game, and how you portray yourself is going to lean into how people get excited and get up for these things, Brandon.
I mean, not just the fans though, like, you know, his job is the players. Players respond to that, you know, and that's why I think fans do say there's Jose Mourinho and the Antonio Conte, because players react to that as well. So I think there is on pitch benefit of him being like, no, this is unacceptable. Like, you blew it. And also there's the psychology of getting on the referee, making him think he messed up, so he owes you one. All of these tactics play into it, and he's got to know this. But like, riding a referee is Klopp's road to success. He guilt trips a referee into sending off a player to calling penalties, yada, yada. That is his like trick that he's got in the basket. And that is something that Potter, you know, if you're not just going to outplay him and outbeat him, sometimes you need these things. And like driving Pawson into the ground and the fourth official is part of managing a game. You have to manage your team, you have to react to the other team, and you have to manage the referees. It is part of a manager's duty. And that is why I was saying he needed to go not nuclear, but he shouldn't have stopped talking until they made Pawson come over, give him a caution. That's how I would have done it. And that's exactly what I would have said to the fourth official. I said, I will not stop yelling at you until Pawson comes over here. So you can either wait 5 minutes or you can have him come over here now. That's how we're going to do this.
Bring over the yellow card right now. Yeah. No, I mean, and it doesn't work. You know, I was thinking about this too. Like, what if one of his assistants had been, you know, to the ones that go, no, it doesn't work.
Send the sacrificial lamb.
It's not the same, because the players, I think in that moment, see Graham Potter as the leader, right? They want him to be the one to lead the charge, to be out in front, and sending your assistant as a sacrificial lamb to get carded or sent off or whatever, Rui Costa style for Mourinho, just doesn't work. So anyway, I just, you know, it's a moment that shouldn't have required Graham Potter to be in someone's face. They should have just done the right thing, right? Which sucks, because we say this all the time, that, you know, powers that be have the responsibility to make these calls. And then certainly we haven't gotten an apology. The most egregious call of the weekend, we haven't gotten an apology. Arsenal did, Nottingham Forest did, I think, but not us. So, but, you know, given those circumstances, like you said, you got to just go fight for the team. And I'd rather you do that in the moment than in the post-match presser.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter at that point.
All right. Well, no date on the match of this game, which we drew. So.
Dan.
There's just a lot of, anger at the end of that game. I was trying not to, need to step away. It's a good advice for anybody. Step away from social media occasionally when the attitude and the atmosphere isn't great.
All right. Well, I think it would have been a good chance for people to voice their opinion after a mixed result. But you have a nice little distraction theory here. Thiago Silva extended officially. Reece James giving him the good news with the locker room clip. Love to see it. Obrigado, Thiago. Another year of Mr. Silva. He'll be 39 during the season next year.
It's just nice to know that there's going to be a player in Chelsea that's the same age as me. It's really heartwarming. I can do anything. That is the message that I take away from it. Like we are so fortunate that like this 1 year thing, right? A 1 year free transfer has turned into will eventually be 4 years of having Thiago Silva hang out on our back line, win a Champions League with us, win the Club World Cup with us. Huge for anyone in Brazil. So that is a massive accomplishment to pull that trophy in while he was been here as well. I mean, look, it'd be great to give the guy a send off with a Premier League title next season. So fingers crossed we can do something magical next year for Thiago as well. And who knows? Maybe all of this comes through and the Why Not Us engine is able to push us through to another Champions League title and maybe another chance for the Club World Cup. But in general, one of the best players to ever come through Chelsea's side. We talked about it in the mailbag we did earlier or last week about wouldn't it have been great to get this guy for 10 years, for 15 years, to get him 15 years earlier into his career, Nick. But like we're so lucky to have him here. It's a great extension. To me, automatic, hands down, the captain for the team next season if Azpilicueta were to leave. No debate. It's just great. He's great. His family's great. His wife is amazing. He's amazing. This is wonderful for Chelsea.
He has been captain the last 2 matches now that Jorginho's left and Aspie hasn't been in. He's captain. I'm looking at the list here a handful of times this season already. So, I mean, I think that'd be an easy decision.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to pile more accolades on. I think the videos of the other Chelsea players hugging him tell you what you need to know about who he is as a person and a professional. And the video between him and Reece is obviously incredibly heartwarming and sweet. And again, if that's what his peers feel about him, and we hear every match commentary that the match commentators feel that way about him, we feel that way about him, he's probably a pretty good player. And I mean, look, you just hope that this 1 year extension leads into a role with the organization past that point, should he choose to retire, right? That he's then brought in. You can't have enough smart football people around a club, especially a club like ours that is building this kind of superpower of football intelligence. I mean, whatever he wants to do post-playing career, just let him do it for you.
Much respect and love for Thiago. Very, I think, easy decision for the club, So as we look around the Premier League at what is going on, as we record, Man City and Villa are playing. It's 3-1. You assume City lock it up. Liverpool and Everton play on Monday, so we won't know how that goes. But Chelsea, West Ham, first game of the weekend, super early for poor Dan and the other West Coasters out there. Arsenal, Brentford 1-1. Palace, Brighton 1-1. Fulham over Forest 2-0. Leicester City 4, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Southampton 1, Wolves 2. Relegation battle there. Bournemouth 1, Newcastle 1. Leeds 0, United 2. So a lot of the big boys tripped up is how I was thinking this weekend was going to go. But as it looks, really just Arsenal tripping up. Newcastle, I suppose, as well. But the 4-1 Leicester coming out of nowhere to just thrash Tottenham. Conte had just returned to the sidelines as well, Nick, after his gallbladder surgery. Lloris is out, so they've got Fraser Forster, the former Southampton goalkeeper, in goal. It was a disaster.
Yeah. Someone tweeted the other day, if you beat Fulham and you beat West Ham, you're only 4 points off of top 4 in this current environment based on the results that had happened. And then your whole conversation about what success looks like is different. And that's not the case with the current table, unfortunately. And so now we're still 10 points off, right? And I mean, I understand, I think, the broad frustration that's happening amongst Chelsea supporters, that you have these flashes of brilliance and then the rest of a match is just not very good, and it doesn't feel like there's a great game plan right now to maximize the opportunity to get points. Got to turn draws into wins, man. You got to do it. And I don't know how that begins to happen. Frankly, I think that's probably the most frustrating piece of this whole thing.
Any other results for you, Dan?
No, I mean Brandon and I are competing in fantasy Premier League, so his pull for Mahrez here is gonna cripple my chances to overtake him this week. So we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, you're gonna have to earn it. Table as it stands. Let me see here. I was messing around with something. Right. Arsenal in first, 51 points. Looks like Man City will be in second on 48 points, assuming the result holds. Man United third on 46 points. Newcastle fourth on 41 points. So that's your top four. Chelsea, we are in ninth, 31 points. Missed a couple of really good opportunities.
Up a position this week.
Yeah, I missed a couple good opportunities to climb ahead on the table. I mean, even an extra 3 points would put us, only in eighth, but with Brentford, it's just that much closer. So, a little frustrating, but still 10 points off of top four. Relegation zone is Southampton losing again. Not good. 15 points. Sacked their manager. Allegedly asked Jesse Marsh to hop on over so they could have a chat.
Whoa.
Yep. Bournemouth 19 on 18 points and Everton 18 on 18 points. Leeds 17 on 19 points. West Ham 16 on 20 points. So it's a valuable point for them, right? They need to just get a minimum a point every single match. They can't drop any more. But with Chelsea's form, I know this doesn't make anyone real happy, but we're unbeaten in 4. The problem is we've drawn our last 3, right? So progress in a sense where we're not losing games, not enough progress when you look at the teams we've played. So there's still a lot of kind of stress and frustration, I think, from everybody. But Dan, you've got your probabilities of where Chelsea are going to land. Any positive movement in this graph?
Well, 5% probability that we will qualify for the Champions League in a top 4 spot, which is not ideal, especially when you consider that Liverpool still have a 19% probability. This is buffeted by the fact that they have played less matches so far. So they've got 2 games in hand on us, and potentially 1 to 2 on others in the table as well. So that's why they're getting a little bit value there.
They play the Sean Dyche led Everton team tomorrow, Monday. So let's go Everton. Come
Merseyside derby.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see how that stands. But anyways, that's it for us. We've covered it all top to bottom. Definitely some bright spots. One switch off leads to the goal. Definitely did enough to win it. VAR debacle kind of just feels like a summation of where we're at right now. Even when we do earn a clear-cut penalty, we don't get it. So we're going to have to dig deeper and just start burying teams 3-4-0, because that's the only way it's going to be firm and not down to flukes or luck. So that's it for us. A lot of content this week per usual. So make sure, again, stay subscribed, check the apps. We'll be back with more, and Champions League. It's back. Get ready. Dortmund. Away.
81,000 in that stadium on Wednesday, by the way.
Convenient timing to open up an extra 20,000 seats.
Interesting the way that works. Full yellow wall. So look, I mean, you're going to need all the mental fortitude possible to make it through that, and give yourself a chance at home with these 3 illustrious folks in attendance to move on to the next round.
Yeah. Well, it's back. The anthem is back. Get ready. Block your calendars. Get the emails set that you're going to be unavailable that afternoon. But anyways, we'll be back to cover that and everything else as always. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.